Allo, allo, it's Nia. Welcome to AI Creator World Podcast, the place where creators learn how to grow faster, build smarter, and turn artificial intelligence into real opportunity. Here, we explore powerful AI tools, content strategies, personal branding systems, and new ways to create income in the digital era. If you are building something online, you are in the right place. Let's begin.
Imagine for a second that you have access to like $1 billion Hollywood studio.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. But it all fits entirely inside your laptop.
Yeah.
You can just spin up this flawless, hyper-realistic artificial influencer.
Hmm.
The lighting is always perfect, that golden hour glow.
Right. The infinite budget look.
Exactly. The styling is impeccable, and you are generating and posting high-definition content, I don't know, 3 times a day, and you're doing it without even breaking a sweat.
Because the AI is doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. But then, after a month of this absolute digital perfection, you look at your dashboard and you have like exactly 12 followers.
Ouch. Yeah. That is the reality for a lot of people right now.
It really is. So today we are taking a deep dive into the realities of the 2026 creator space, because we really need to understand why absolute digital perfection is currently, it's pretty much the fastest route to total irrelevance.
It's basically the defining paradox of the current landscape.
Right.
Because we are operating in this environment where the cost of generating high-fidelity media has essentially just dropped to zero.
Right.
Anyone can create a visually stunning avatar. But what we are seeing across the board is that these accounts launch with incredible aesthetics. They pump out content with robotic consistency.
Literally robotic.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
And they are met with just complete silence. I mean, they just become part of the background radiation of the internet.
Yeah, and if you are spinning up an AI persona right now, I mean, your first instinct is probably to make them as broadly appealing and visually flawless as possible, right? To catch the widest net of viewers.
Of course, that's what we were all taught to do.
Right. But we're looking at this really comprehensive strategy breakdown today. It's from the AI Creator World team, and it's all about AI influencer positioning. And their core thesis completely upends that whole instinct.
It really is. It flips it on its head.
Yeah, they argue that the vast majority of AI accounts aren't failing because the generation tech is bad or, the content is poor. They're failing because of weak positioning.
Yeah, weak positioning is the killer.
It makes me think of, it's like building the most architecturally stunning storefront in a massive city. The windows are spotless, the interior design is breathtaking, but there is absolutely no sign on the door.
And no menu in the window.
Exactly. You haven't given anyone walking by a single reason to actually cross the threshold and come inside, let alone, become a regular customer.
Right. Because when an audience cannot explain in a single, simple sentence what makes your creator fundamentally different from the, 50 other AI-generated faces they scrolled past that morning.
Your growth mechanics just completely stall out?
Completely. The novelty of simply being an artificial creator, I mean, that wore off years ago.
Oh, yeah. Nobody cares anymore.
Exactly. The audience isn't pausing to marvel at the technology anymore. They're asking the exact same question they ask of human creators, which is, what value are you providing to my specific worldview?
Right, which means we have to look way past the surface level here. If the goal is survival in this super-saturated market, the foundation has to be psychological, not just visual.
Yeah.
And the strategy points to developing a unique persona DNA before you even open a generation tool.
That's pillar one. Yeah.
Exactly, pillar one. You need intentional behavioral and relational traits, not just generic adjectives like, oh, she's stylish or confident. You need specific narrative identities.
Right, like what are they actually doing?
Yeah, like, are you the hyper-analytical voice breaking down microeconomics, or are you an irreverent, chaotic persona poking holes in tech culture? But I actually want to push back on this for a second.
Okay, go for it.
So if an influencer is literally just lines of code and pixels, do we really need to over-engineer things like emotional connection triggers or a sense of belonging? If the avatar looks cool and the aesthetic is futuristic, shouldn't that be enough of a hook?
Well, no, because the artificial nature of the creator is exactly why those emotional triggers are non-negotiable.
Wait, really?
Yeah, think about it. With a human creator, there's a baseline of shared humanity. If a human creator sighs on camera or looks a little tired, we inherently map our own human empathy onto them.
Oh, because we've all been tired.
Exactly. But an AI has no baseline humanity. You are starting from a massive deficit of empathy.
Wow, okay.
So if you do not actively architect emotional triggers like curiosity, aspiration, or even just a highly specific shared frustration, any resonance you manage to get is just a statistical accident.
So you are basically compensating for the lack of a soul by meticulously engineering the psychology.
That is exactly what you're doing. You are building a psychological anchor, and there's a deeply technical reason for this too that goes beyond just, human feelings.
Okay, what is it?
Think about how the platform algorithms actually function. They operate as prediction engines. The algorithm wants to predict, with mathematical certainty, how long a specific user will watch a piece of content.
Right, retention is everything.
Retention is everything. So if your AI's persona is just generally cool, or if it shifts its tone depending on whatever trend is happening that week, the algorithm cannot predict who will watch it.
Because it's all over the place.
Right. It doesn't know who your core audience is. So what does it do? It just stops showing the content to anyone. Owning a highly specific emotional and behavioral niche is how you train the algorithm to actually work for you.
That shifts the perspective entirely. You aren't just designing a personality for the viewer, you are designing a predictable data set for the algorithm.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we have successfully built this internal psychological DNA. We know who the AI is, what they care about, what their biases are.
Yep.
But an audience swiping at light speed cannot see your internal strategy document.
No, they cannot.
They only see pixels. So how do you translate a complex psychological trait into a visual cue that registers in, what, half a second?
Right. So that brings us to pillars 2 and 3. That is the ultimate 1-second recognition test. Visual identity is your absolute fastest communication channel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Before the user even registers the text on the screen, before they process the audio, they have already registered your aesthetic. At the speed of the modern scroll, your positioning either lands immediately or you are entirely invisible.
So you have to be instantly recognizable.
Instantly. And this requires moving from having a general preference to establishing hard, non-negotiable visual rules.
The difference between a preference and a rule is such a great distinction.
It really is.
The playbook we're looking at gives a hypothetical example of a true visual signature. It says, cinematic high-contrast portrait style with warm tones and luxury environment staging.
That is highly specific.
Super specific. Just telling your generation tool to make good-looking photos is a preference. But demanding that every single output uses warm, golden hour directional lighting, and that the avatar only ever wears, say, a neutral architectural wardrobe, that becomes a visual fingerprint.
Yes, exactly.
And tell me if I'm wrong here, doesn't that inherently limit the power of generative AI? I mean, the whole magic of these tools is infinite possibility. If I lock myself into one hyper-specific visual constraint, aren't I just artificially hamstringing my own creative potential?
Infinite possibility is the trap.
Really?
Yeah. Infinite possibility creates generic output. When you constrain the visual parameters, you force the audience to focus on the narrative and the character rather than just the visual spectacle.
Well, that's interesting.
Right. If you look at the most durable accounts right now, they essentially build a mood board of like 30 or 40 reference images. They identify recurring patterns in lighting, spatial composition, color, temperature, and they lock those in as absolute laws.
Absolute law.
Yeah. If a viewer cannot recognize that a piece of content belongs to your brand without seeing your username attached to it, your visual signature is failing. The constraint is what builds that algorithmic prediction engine we just talked about.
Okay, so visuals are the hook, but they don't hold the audience long term. You get them to stop scrolling with the lighting and the wardrobe, but what actually builds the trust is the voice archetype.
Exactly. Visuals attract, but voice converts.
Yay.
The underlying communication tone is what dictates the nature of the relationship. When we look at the landscape, successful creators generally lock in to one of 4 dominant voice archetypes.
Okay, what are they?
You have the mentor, who operates from a place of authority and guidance. You have the peer, who frames the content as a shared journey, learning alongside the audience.
Right, like we're in this together.
Exactly. Then the entertainer uses humor and high energy. And finally, the visionary relies on inspiration and an elevated, almost philosophical perspective.
But this brings up a massive technical challenge when managing an AI.
Oh, huge.
Because if you are a human, your natural voice archetype generally carries over whether you are making a 15-second fast-paced video or writing a long-form essay. It's just you.
Right.
But with an AI, you are relying on large language models to generate the scripting. If you use a generic prompt, You get that sterile, instantly recognizable AI voice.
The ChatGPT voice, yeah.
Exactly. So you have to hard code the archetype into your system prompts so that the AI sounds like a chaotic entertainer on a short video and still sounds like that exact same chaotic entertainer when writing a deep dive newsletter.
And that consistency across different mediums is incredibly difficult to maintain, which is why so many creators fail at it.
Because they get lazy.
Well, they get distracted, they see a snarky, cynical tone going viral in their niche, so they prompt their AI to adopt that tone for a few videos.
Oh, chasing trends.
Right. They get a short-term spike in engagement, but they actively destroy their brand equity in the process. Voice is a compounding asset.
That is such a key point.
The moment your audience senses that the persona's voice is just mimicking whatever is popular, the illusion breaks, and the trust just evaporates. You optimize for a quick spike at the expense of long-term authority.
So it's basically a matter of discipline.
Pure discipline.
Okay, so we have the internal DNA, we have the constrained visual rules, and we have a hard-coded voice archetype. The machine is built.
Yeah, the foundation is there.
Now we need a vehicle to actually deliver this identity to the market and grow the audience, which naturally moves us into pillars 4 and 5, the structural mechanics of viral formats and ecosystem expansion.
Right, because content that achieves massive reach does not happen by accident.
Definitely not.
It relies on highly engineered viral structures. We're talking specific emotional arcs, tension and release pacing, very particular framing for hooks. The strategic move here is not to invent a new format from scratch.
Right. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. You audit the formats that are already dominating your specific niche, and you create a proprietary variation of them.
Got it. So you take the structural logic of a winning format, but you inject your own strict visual rules and your voice archetype into it?
Yes.
Like if everyone is doing a day-in-the-life format, you don't just copy their camera angles. You apply your high-contrast, moody visual constraint to it, and you narrate it from your visionary voice archetypes rather than a standard, casual vlog tone.
Perfectly said. It completely transforms the format into something only you can own.
But I want to pivot to the growth strategy here, specifically regarding collaboration and network effects, because the playbook introduces something called the Law of 50,000, and it fundamentally challenges standard marketing logic.
It really does. It shakes people up.
The premise is that reaching 50,000 highly aligned followers builds significantly more positioning equity than reaching 500,000 misaligned ones.
That is the core of modern positioning right there.
Hmm.
The era of optimizing purely for top-of-funnel reach is over.
Okay, but mathematically, that makes absolutely no sense. Well, if I have a hypothetical conversion rate of 1%, right? Exposing my content to 500,000 people yields 5,000 new fans. Exposing it to 50,000 people only yields 500 fans. Why on earth would I intentionally shrink my top-of-funnel reach just for the sake of alignment?
Because your mathematical model assumes that the 495,000 people who didn't convert simply move on with no negative consequence to your brand.
Wait, they don't.
No. We have to go back to the algorithmic prediction engine. Let's say you collaborate with a massive creator who has 500,000 followers, but their audience is entirely misaligned with your niche. What happens?
The algorithm pushes your content to them.
Right. It pushes it to those 500,000 people. They look at it, realize it isn't for them, and they immediately swipe away.
Oh.
You have just fed the algorithm a massive data set indicating that your content has a terrible retention rate. You have essentially contaminated your own algorithmic standing.
Oh, wow. So you train the algorithm to believe your content is low quality because you served it to the wrong demographic.
Precisely. You ruin your engagement metrics for months.
Yeah, that is brutal.
It is. Conversely, if you partner with a creator whose 50,000 followers are perfectly aligned with your target demographic, you are introducing your brand in a context that immediately validates your authority.
Because they actually care about the topic.
Right. They don't just swipe past.
Yeah.
They watch the whole video, they click through to your profile, they engage. Those 50,000 highly aligned impressions signal to the algorithm that your content is incredibly sticky.
Which then triggers the platform to find more people exactly like them.
Exactly. You are building ecosystem density rather than just chasing hollow vanity metrics.
That completely changes how you view network effects.
Right.
It isn't about shouting into the biggest room. It is about finding the rooms where everyone already speaks your specific language.
Yes.
And this density is what allows you to move an audience from casual viewers to an actual community. This is pillars 6 and 7, right? We are moving from engagement to loyalty and ultimately to revenue.
Right, because engagement is just a raw metric. A view or a like doesn't really mean much in isolation. Community, however, is the output of excellent, sustained positioning. And the mechanism for building that community relies heavily on creating recurring engagement traditions.
Or loyalty loops.
Exactly, loyalty loops.
See, with human creators, a loyalty loop might be a weekly Q&A or a recurring joke. But with an AI creator, the ability to scale these rituals is just mind-bending.
It's insane.
Because an AI does not need to sleep. It does not get burned out. You can program your avatar to personally reply to 10,000 comments a day, perfectly maintaining that mentor or entertainer voice archetype.
Referencing inside jokes, validating the audience's engagement.
Yeah.
That scale of personalized interaction is unprecedented, and it supercharges the loyalty loop.
Because everyone gets a response.
Exactly. The audience engages with a piece of content because it hits one of those emotional triggers we engineered back in step 1. The AI recognizes that engagement individually, which provides the user with a profound sense of belonging.
And that belonging drives them to return and engage again the next day.
Right. And with every single cycle of that loop, the casual viewer is fundamentally changing the relationship to the brand.
It becomes an identity anchor. It's the shift from someone saying, oh, I like watching this creator's videos, to them saying, I am a part of this creator's community.
Yes, the wording completely changes.
They adopt the creator's specific vocabulary. They start identifying as a practitioner of whatever niche philosophy the AI promotes. And once a brand achieves that level of deep, almost cult-like identity anchoring, the monetization model completely flips.
Totally. You are no longer just fighting for scraps of ad revenue based on raw views.
You unlock premium monetization positioning.
Right, because how you are perceived in the market directly dictates what you can charge for your influence. Authority perception is a composite signal.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when a brand sponsor looks at your account, they aren't just looking at follower count. They are looking at the depth of the content, the unbreakable consistency of your visual quality, and the intense loyalty loops in your comment section.
They see the engagement.
Right. And when all those signals align, the market perceives premium value. And premium value justifies premium pricing.
The psychology of pricing here is fascinating because it responds entirely to scarcity and specificity. If you are an AI creator with incredibly precise positioning, let's say you only focus on the intersection of vintage fashion and augmented reality, and your audience is fiercely loyal to that niche, you can command significantly higher rates from a fashion tech brand than a generalist AI who just posts, pretty pictures to millions of random followers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the sponsor knows exactly what demographic they are buying into. There's no guesswork.
Right.
And this is where reputation capital comes into play.
Yeah.
The strategic choices you make to protect your positioning have massive long-term financial consequences. Well, there's always the temptation to take a misaligned brand deal just because the sponsor is offering a quick cash payout.
Oh, for sure.
But taking that deal signals to your core community that your positioning is actually for sale. It breaks the loyalty loop.
Wow, so you burn the trust.
Exactly. The creators who win in the long run are the ones who aggressively protect their positioning, because that discipline is what gives them massive revenue leverage 2, 3, or 5 years down the line. They build a track record of absolute brand safety and reliability.
So it's a revenue architecture decision disguised as a marketing choice.
100%.
Okay, so we have deconstructed the entire theory. We understand the internal DNA, the visual constraints, the voice archetypes, the algorithmic growth structures, and monetization psychology.
Right.
But theory only goes so far. If someone listening to this right now wants to actually execute this on their own digital footprint, where do they start?
The playbook details a very specific execution framework called the competitive positioning audit and a 60-day sprint. Yet the audit is crucial. It is how you locate the literal white space in your market. Because you cannot position yourself in a vacuum.
Right.
You select 10 to 15 creators who occupy a space adjacent to yours, meaning they share a similar niche or target demographic, and you aggressively audit their output over the last 60 days across 3 specific dimensions: their topic distribution, their format usage, and their emotional tone.
And you map this all out on a matrix, right?
Exactly. And when you cross-reference everyone, you inevitably find clusters where, say, 10 creators are all making the exact same format with the exact same mentor voice archetype.
It's just a sea of sameness.
Right. But more importantly, you find the differentiation gaps. You find the topics that the audience is clearly hungry for, but that nobody's delivering with a highly specific, ownable angle.
Ah.
And once you locate that gap, you trigger the 60-day rollout plan.
Okay, so how does that work?
You compress the strategic pivot into a sequenced window. Month 1 is entirely focused on identity definition and executing the content pivot. You lock in your visual constraints, you finalize your voice archetype prompts, and you audit your past content. Then you begin publishing pieces that fully express this new, sharpened positioning.
You worry about engagement dropping in month 1.
No, you do not worry about growth in month 1 at all. You only worry about consistency.
Got it. And then month 2 shifts toward audience reinforcement and authority building.
Exactly.
That is when you initiate those highly aligned collaborations to tap into the law of 50,000 we talked about. You establish your recurring community rituals to start building the loyalty loops, and you drop a massive flagship piece of content that serves as the definitive statement of what your brand now stands for.
You declare your space.
Yeah. But let's be real for a second. What if you do that competitive matrix, you look at your current account, and you realize your positioning is just an absolute disaster?
It happens.
It's generic, the visuals are all over the place, and the algorithm has no idea who you are. Do you just torch the account and start over? I mean, is repositioning essentially an admission of total failure?
No, not at all. It is entirely counterproductive to view it as a failure. Repositioning is a strategic maturity signal.
Really? A maturity signal?
Absolutely. The reality of the data shows that almost every durable creator has to make at least one major positioning adjustment in their first 12 to 18 months, simply because you do not know what will actually resonate until you test it against live market data.
Right, you have to get it out there first.
The critical element, though, is that the repositioning must be narrative-driven, not abrupt. You do not just wake up one day and fundamentally alter the avatar's face and personality without explanation.
That would just confuse everyone.
Right. You frame the evolution as part of the brand's ongoing story. You explain the shift in focus to your audience, bringing them along for the journey, while maintaining just enough visual and voice continuity that they still recognize the core identity.
So intentional growth rather than reactive panic.
Exactly.
I think that is the perfect framework. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We took a deep dive into the realities of the 2026 digital landscape, and the mandate is pretty clear. In an era where hyper-realistic, flawless generation costs nothing and takes seconds, simply showing up with pretty pictures guarantees you absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all. You must architect a unified system.
Yeah.
Your psychological DNA, your visual constraints, your voice prompting, your format structures, and your community rituals, they cannot operate independently.
Right.
They all have to aggressively point in the exact same strategic direction.
Yeah, so if you take away anything from today's deep dive, let it be this. Whether you are managing an AI influencer, trying to scale a personal brand, or even running a corporate media strategy, you have to stop being the beautiful storefront with no sign on the door. You have to force the algorithm and the audience to understand exactly who you are, what specific worldview you represent, and why they should care within the very first second of contact.
You know, there is a profound implication to all of this that extends way beyond just marketing strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If generative tools have driven the cost of creating absolute, flawless visual perfection down to literal zero, it forces us to ask what actually retains value.
Right.
It seems the only true scarcity left on the internet is human-like positioning. The highly specific narrative quirks, the deeply opinionated voice, the intentional constraints. When perfection is everywhere and costs nothing, deliberate, structured humanity, even if it is entirely artificially generated, becomes the ultimate luxury good in digital media.
Wow. The ultimate luxury good is feeling real. That is a concept that just shifts the entire paradigm. So think about the constraints on your own digital footprint. Think about the sign on your storefront, and we will see you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for listening to AI Creator World Podcast. If you found this episode valuable, make sure to follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and share this episode with another creator who is building their future online. For deeper guides, AI tools, and step-by-step growth strategies, visit our website at aicreatorworld.net. And remember, in the age of artificial intelligence, creators who learn faster will lead the future. See you in the next episode. Bye!